Now, sick note Britain. We certainly live in a sick note country at the moment. It appears the number of 16 to 24-year-olds not working due to long-term sickness has doubled just since 2010. Now, new figures show 235,000 are out of work. That's the highest since before the pandemic. So what could be to blame? Are they truly unwell? Have we bred a generation of snowflake sickies? Is long NHS waiting lists to blame? Bad mental health provision? Let's ask Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Ben, what needs to happen here? If you were in government and you saw these figures in front of you, young people who should be able to work actually languishing on sick pay instead, what's going on?
Well, I wouldn't rush to condemn them as snowflake sickies. I mean, that may be the case, but I wouldn't rush to condemn them on that front. What we're seeing with that age group is actually symptomatic of what's happening right across the labour force. So even though I think you mentioned 250,000 people in that age group who are mentally ill by their own declaration and aren't looking for work, so they don't come up in the unemployment figures, they simply aren't looking for work, that's mirrored right across all the age groups. So we now have 6 million people on universal credit, 3 million before lockdowns, doubled in other words, and we've got 2 million people in the country claiming mental health issues and not looking for work. And the bill for the exchequer is vast. Universal credit costs the country about £75 billion a year. That's a quarter of the total income tax take. And there are many economic ills about which you and I have discussed in the past. This is perhaps the most serious economic ill because you have 6 million people, 20% of the workforce, not in proper, gainful, self-sustaining employment. And we've got to get these people back into work. And the key thing here that the government seems to have completely lost the plot on is the need to cut taxes on the working and middle class. Now, I would argue that the principal reason people aren't working is because the gap between what you can get on benefits and what you get in net wages, even on median wages, and a lot of these people would obviously be below the median wage mark. But what you get on median wages, the gap between benefits and median wages isn't significant enough to give people the incentive to go back to work. So it's critical, in my view, that we reduce the tax on working class, reduce the basic rate of tax, increase the threshold at which people pay tax. And then I think you'll see that group of people right across the board, in fact, all the 6 million people on universal credit, going back into work. And that'll have two immediate effects, Emily, won't it? It'll have an immediate reduction on the burden of the state, picking up that £75 billion a year tab for people who aren't working, and it would also boost income taxes. And this is what Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt seem to have completely failed to recognise, that if you get Britain working again, it's a double benefit. You boost the Exchequer's revenue and you cut the demands made of the Exchequer.
So Ben, you're essentially saying this isn't a case of lazy-itis, as one of our viewers has written in, but actually a lot of people are making quite a rational choice not to spend their lives working, because actually the tax burden is so high that it acts as a demotivating force.
Absolutely. We all know that taxes are a post-World War II high. So we all know that the pendulum on tax has to go the other way, and it's got to go there fast. And the class of people that get taxed the most is the working and middle classes. And they're also the people that are the engine of productivity in the United Kingdom. The reason we have to rely so much on immigration is because we're not incentivizing our own British citizens to get back into the workforce. It's basic economics. And it's lost on Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak.
Ben, I wonder if there's also a cultural problem among younger people, a huge mental health crisis, many people not being able to get the help that they need, perhaps overdiagnosed, I don't know, but we know that lots of young people are struggling with their mental health, and that can really impact whether you are able to get a job and keep that job down.
Look, I'm sure there are people out there who've got genuine mental health issues. The fact, however, that there are now 2 million people not even looking for work, claiming to be, not entirely mentally well, doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't seem rationally. It doesn't pass the sort of basic scrutiny of introspection, if you know what I mean. It just seems too big a figure for mental health issues. And I think there is something going on in our society where, we are prepared far too often to give in to people's excuses for not wanting to go to work. 30 years ago, when I entered the workforce, the thing used to be backache. No doctor could really tell you whether someone who was claiming to have had backache genuinely had a bad back. But that was what people used to claim if they didn't want to go to work. The key is to incentivize people to go to work. So they get out of bed every morning and they're not thinking, oh, goodness, it's such a struggle to live. But they get out of bed every morning thinking, yes, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make an honest day's wages and I'm going to keep those wages in my pocket so I can spend them the way I wish to spend them this week, next week, a month later, save up for myself and have a bright future. And if you can get that message of aspiration into the workforce, you fix the workforce. And if you fix the workforce, as I mentioned, you reduce the burden on the state and the economic organism begins to grow. And
yes,
that
I mean,
is what
Ben, Callum's just written in. He says, I'm a young person on sick leave for weeks after breaking a bone. I've been itching to get back to work. But he does add, especially as a young person, it is harder to get a job over older, more experienced applicants. But I guess all we can say is keep those applications going in and hopefully you'll find something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, other people at the other end of the age scale would also say it's difficult because they're older and people want younger. But, I mean, the ideal, without wishing to offend anyone who's obsessed with the Equalities Act, the ideal age for people in the workforce is 30 through to 45. You've got experience, you're young enough, you're fit enough, you're, on the make. You get to my age, you've kind of done it. I'm still hungry, but that's me. That's a personal thing. But the economic organism, as you indicated, Emily, is rational. And if you don't give people an incentive to work, they won't work. If they can make nearly as much money sitting at home, they're not going to get up and do it.
Absolutely. And if you are languishing
with aspiration,
if you are languishing on an NHS waiting list, which millions of people are, that's not going to help either. But thank you very much, Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Always great to speak to you. Appreciate it.